The story of Merlin is soon told. Merlin was the son of no mortal father, but of an incubus, one of a class of beings not absolutely wicked, but far from good, who inhabited regions of the air. Merlin's mother was a virtuous young woman, who on the birth of her son entrusted him to a priest, who hurried him to the baptismal font, and so saved him from sharing the lot of his father, though he retained many marks of his unearthly origin. At this time, Vortigern reigned in Britain. He was a usurper who had caused the death of his sovereign, Moins, and driven the two brothers of the late king, whose names were Uther and Pendragon, into banishment. Vortigern, who lived in constant fear of the return of the rightful heirs of the kingdom, began to erect a strong tower for defense. The edifice, when brought by the workmen to a certain height, 3 times fell to the ground, without any apparent cause. The king consulted his astrologers on this wonderful event, and learned from them that it would be necessary to bathe the cornerstone of the foundation with the blood of a child born without a mortal father. In search of such an infant, Vortigern sent his messengers all over the kingdom, and they, by accident, discovered Merlin, whose lineage seemed to point him out as the individual wanted. They took him to the king, but Merlin, young as he was, explained to the king the absurdity of attempting to rescue the fabric by such means, for he told him the true cause of the instability of the tower was its being placed over the den of 2 immense dragons, whose combats shook the earth above them. The king ordered his workmen to dig beneath the tower, and when they had done so, they discovered 2 enormous serpents, the one white as milk, the other red as fire. The multitude looked on with amazement, till the serpents, slowly rising from their den and expanding their enormous folds, began the combat. When everyone fled in terror, except Merlin, who stood by, clapping his hands and cheering on the conflict, the red dragon was slain, and the white one, gliding through a cleft in the rock, disappeared. These animals typified, as Merlin afterwards explained, the invasion of Uther and Pendragon, the rightful princes, who soon after landed with a great army. Vortigern was defeated, and afterwards burned alive in the castle he had taken such pains to construct. On the death of Vortigern, Pendragon ascended the throne. Merlin became his chief adviser, and often assisted the king by his magical arts. Merlin, who knew the range of all their arts, had built the king his havens, ships, and halls. Vivian. Merlin continued to be a favorite counselor through the reigns of Pendragon, Uther, and Arthur, and at last disappeared from view and was no more found among men through the treachery of his mistress, Vivian the fairy, which happened in this wise. Merlin, having become enamored of the fair Vivian, the Lady of the Lake, was weak enough to impart to her various important secrets of his art, being impelled by fatal destiny, of which he was at the same time fully aware. The lady, however, was not content with his devotion, unbounded as it seems to have been, but cast about. The romance tells us how she might detain him for evermore, and one day addressed him in these terms: "Sir, I would that we should make a fair place, and a suitable, so contrived by art and by cunning, that it might never be undone, and that you and I should be there in joy and solace." "My lady," said Merlin, "I will do all this." "Sir," said she, "I would not have you do it, but you shall teach me, and I will do it, and then it will be more to my mind." "I grant you this," said Merlin. Then he began to devise, and the damsel put it all in writing. And when he had devised the whole, then had the damsel full great joy, and showed him greater semblance of love than she had ever before made, and they sojourned together a long, long while. At length it fell out that as they were going one day hand in hand through the forests of Broceliande, they found a bush of white thorn which was laden with flowers, and they seated themselves under the shade of this white thorn upon the green grass, and Merlin laid his head upon the damsel's lap and fell asleep. Then the damsel rose and made a ring with her wimple round the bush and round Merlin, and began her enchantments, such as he himself had taught her. And 9 times she made the ring, and 9 times she made the enchantment, and then she went and sat down by him, and placed his head again upon her lap. And when he awoke, and looked around him, it seemed to him that he was enclosed in the strongest tower in the world, and laid upon a fair bed. Then said he to the dame, My lady, you have deceived me, unless you abide with me, for no one hath power to unmake this tower, but you alone. She then promised she would be often there, and in this she held her covenant with him. And Merlin never went out of that tower, where his mistress Viviane had enclosed him, but she entered and went out again when she listed. After this event, Merlin was never more known to hold converse with any mortal but Viviane, except on one and only one occasion. Arthur, having for some time missed him from his court, sent several of his knights in search of him, and among the number Sir Gawaine, who met with a very unpleasant adventure while engaged in this quest, happening to pass a damsel on his road and neglecting to salute her, as all true knights should. She revenged herself for his incivility by transforming him into a hideous dwarf. He was bewailing aloud his evil fortune as he went through the forest of Broceliande, when suddenly he heard the voice of one groaning on his right hand, and looking that way, he could see nothing save a kind of smoke which seemed like air, and through which he could not pass. Merlin then addressed him from out of the smoke, and told him by what misadventure he was imprisoned there. Ah, sir, he added, you will never see me more, and that grieves me, but I cannot remedy it. I shall never more speak to you, nor to any other person, save only my mistress. But do thou hasten to King Arthur, and charge him for me to undertake without delay the quest of the Sacred Grail. The knight is already born, and has received knighthood at his hands, who is destined to accomplish the quest. And after this, he comforted Gawaine under his transformation, assuring him that he should speedily be disenchanted. And he predicted to him that he should find the king at Carduel in Wales on his return, and that all the other knights who had been on like quest would arrive there the same day as himself. And all this came to pass, as Merlin had said.